Welcome back, cadets. I am Professor Eclipse, and today we've got a very special episode for you. One, because I'm not wearing my helmet like I would normally be doing, and two, because we have a very special guest. His name is Craig David Wallace, and he is one of the co creators of Todd and the Book of Pure Evil. Now, for those of you who don't know what Todd and the Book of Pure Evil is, well, why don't you explain it to him, Craig?
Oh man, Todd and the Book of Pure Evil is a half-hour supernatural high school comedy that aired in 2011 and 2012. Maybe it was 2010, 2011. It was a long time ago. After the show was all wrapped up, we did an Indiegogo campaign to raise money to make an animated feature as a sequel to the live action television show called Todd and the Book of Pure Evil, The End of the End. And that wrapped up the Todd and the Book of Pure Evil saga, more or less.
Yeah, it's one of those things where a lot of people probably caught it on the on Netflix, at least in America, but this was originally just a Canadian show.
It was originally a Canadian show, but it aired first in the United States on a channel called FearNet, which was one of those channels that would always be like you'd see an ad for it, and call your service provider if you want to get FearNet or if it's available in your location. So it was yeah, it was an interesting place to be. They were great. It was just hard to get.
It seems like that's happened with a lot of the horror comedy type shows, because I know after your show there was another resurgence of like Ash versus Evil Dead on Stars, and then they ended up getting canceled because of lack of viewership. I think that's at least according to the internet, that seems to be the main reason why this show got canceled.
Yeah, horror comedy is a tricky beast. It's people who love it a lot. There's a divide. I think there's like hardcore fans of horror comedy, and then there's people who just want their horror to be horror with maybe a few jokes here and there, a little bit of humor. So yeah, it's always been a challenging place to be, and anything that's kind of that arch it's a tough sell. It's tough to keep going.
Yeah, it's always hard to mix the comedy with the horror, but realistically, when it works, it is some of the best television and film that you can find. Because there was another show or a movie, Tucker and Dale versus Evil. I believe that was another Canadian horror comedy film. But apparently, the Canadians do it right when it comes to horror comedy, mixing it together. Because I found your show back in 2012. I believe season two had just ended, which I didn't realize that that was all there was going to be for about 5 or 6 years after that until the animated feature came out. But I fell in love with the show immediately. I mean, I bought the
Ah,
DVDs.
right on. Excellent.
There's no Blu-ray available of it other than the end of the end, unfortunately.
Yeah, there isn't, and I don't even have HD copies of the show, believe it or not. It just goes to show what a weird period of time that was. It was in this weird straddle between like moving from standard def to HD. When we made the show too, we shot it on red cameras, and it was still one of those things where people were like you're not shooting on film, or how are you going to do this? And it's really amazing to see just how everything's changed so much in a decade.
I mean, even the DVDs still look fantastic. I
Great.
worry about longevity, 20, 30 years from now, who knows what it'll look like, but
Yeah.
uh,
But in 20
yeah.
or 30 years, you can just get your AI to make you some new Todd and the Book of Pure Evil
Oh,
episodes,
God.
and that'll be, you can live vicariously through your nostalgia.
Did you hear about the AI of George Carlin that they were
I
doing here
I
recently?
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
just it's just nuts. I mean, yeah, I mean it was bad enough when it was the Dio hologram out there, but now we're just going next level. So,
Yeah, it's just going to keep getting crazy. I imagine we'll get a lot of horror comedy films about AI coming up soon. They
oh
kind of
yeah,
tried to do
yeah.
it with the Chucky reboot a couple
All
years
right, yeah.
but we're not talking about that. We're talking about your show. So, how did Todd and the Book of Pure Evil come to exist? I know you were working in college, right? With
It
Max Reed. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't really college. It was there's a place in Canada called the Canadian Film Center, and it's this postgraduate film program. It's a lot like Canada's version of the American Film Institute. So you apply, and every year they take a handful of writers and directors and editors and producers, and they smush them together and hope something comes out of it. And I was really into the idea of doing something like Young Sherlock Holmes or Young Indiana Jones. I loved that sort of world, and I had a really big soft spot for it. And I came up with this idea for young Faust, and I wanted to have Faust to be this high school student who made a deal with the devil. And I talked about it with Max, and I got to know Max really early on in the program because I overheard him talking about Lords of Chaos, the book on Norwegian black metal. He was talking about it with somebody else, and I was like, "All right, we're going to be friends." And yeah, it just kind of took off from there. We did a short film with our producer Anthony Leo, and yeah, it went through a bunch of different titles for weird legal reasons. There was I think it was a Showtime movie of the week called "I Was a Teenage Faust," and for some reason they thought we should change our name because of that. And so it went from Young Faust to the one I was really pitching hard for was Faust Times at Crowley High, but they wouldn't do that, and so that was a real bummer because that one I really liked. But in retrospect, I don't think we could have made a television series out of that. I think that name would have kind of shut that whole process down. So we did a short, and after that, I had in my head that we could do a television series where every week the Book of Pure Evil would fall into another kid's hands, and hijinks would ensue. And it was originally conceived as a really like an anthology series where every episode would really just follow a new character every time. But when I started developing the project with another writer named Charles Pico, who really helped create the television series because Max went off to do his own thing, we really realized that we needed to have somebody who really carried on the story from episode to episode, somebody we could really get to know and rally behind. And that's how Todd came back to the Book of Pure Evil and became the driving force to save and probably destroy the world at the same time.
With mixed results, trying
With
to
mixed
save
results.
the. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
With creating a show in general, I mean, I know things have probably changed since 2010, 11, around that time. But as far as getting this show on the air, like, who did you wind up trying to pitch it to, and what convinced them to say yes?
I have no idea why anybody said yes. It was really the right place at the right time. The Canadian television industry at that time was really in flux. There was a whole bunch of smaller broadcasters who kept kind of getting bought out by bigger broadcasters, and there were these incentives in place that if you bought out a smaller broadcaster, you had to put some money into the government funding scheme, and it was super complicated. But ultimately, we landed at the Space Network, and we had some really great executives who really got the show. And somehow they let us make a show that featured 9 feet long penises that turn people to stone, and put it on prime time. So we had no idea how that happened. It was very odd.
It was really impressive what you guys got away with. I mean, American television,
Yes.
you could never do that unless it's like a cable network kind of deal or whatever. Um,
I'm actually surprised how many giant penises are on television now. It's really become a thing, and yeah, I feel like maybe we were groundbreaking at that point, really
I, I,
putting the cock
I,
on television. So
I think you guys were the first,
we may
as
have
far
been,
as,
yeah,
yeah. I,
yeah,
uh,
and
yeah, the practical effects on your show too was very top notch. I mean, I'm not sure what the actual budget for the show was, but it impressed me at least that you guys did go with practical. It seemed more so than CGI even back then.
Absolutely. I mean, we made a decision early on that we would much rather see a guy in a rubber suit than any sort of CGI monster that was running around. And, I had a little bit of a background in visual effects, and we always thought we would use it to augment whatever practical thing we could do. And we were very lucky to find this amazing prosthetics monster maker in Toronto named David Scott. And he really just became our god of practical effects. Him and Winnipeg prosthetics guy named Doug Morrow, they really worked really well together and just creating this them and their team, and it was just fantastic. So, and in a lot of ways too, it was kind of a weird schedule because we would. We had all 13 episodes of the first season written already when we got greenlit, and we shot them in order of when the prosthetics would be ready. There were some things that were just going to take longer to build, and so just weird things like the little Todd homunculus that would run around. That was one of the last episodes we shot because it just took a lot of research and development to just nail it for when we were going to shoot it. So it was all shot completely out of order, but based on when the prosthetics would be ready and all the monsters and stuff.
So you didn't shoot in like any sort of like, was it a whole episode at a time, or did you literally just shoot
Yeah,
what
it
you
was
had
well,
as far as the props
it was
go?
No, it was more like it was
Uh,
a couple of episodes at a time. It was always shooting 2 episodes, within a week block, week and a half. I don't know. It was a long time ago. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was very crazy experience. We found a decommissioned high school in Winnipeg, and that became our production office and also all of our like R&D, prosthetic stuff, and also our set. So you would go out from where we were filming a scene, and then you could go into the parking lot, and they were trying to figure out how to, rip a body in 5, basically, like rip off the limbs and have the torso stay in the air before it dropped. And you just every corner you would turn, there'd be like blood spatter tests going on, and people skateboarding down the hallways, and just all this madness all the time. It was
it's
totally
kind of like a
bonkers.
really, fucked up Hogwarts.
Yeah, yeah, very much, very much. So, yeah, it was a really good time.
Yeah, for sure. How did Jason Mewes get on board for the show?
So that's a bit of a crazy story, and if I can try to remember this right. So, when we made the Todd and the Book of Pure Evil short film, we actually shot it on the set of Degrassi: The Next Generation, and we hired a production manager who worked on the Degrassi show, and he got us access to that set. And through him, later on, like once it took us like 6 years between doing the short and getting the television series made, and in that time, Degrassi did this special episode with Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes, and so this guy we worked with, this production manager, he had gotten to know Jay, and told him about the show and got him interested, and he came on board, which was awesome. He was a blast to work with.
Yeah, I haven't met him in person, but Kevin Smith actually officiated my wedding back in the day whenever I
No
was
way!
still young. Yeah.
Amazing. That's great.
It was pretty cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, Jason Mewes being on the show was one of the draws for me because he was talking about it in an interview in one of his podcasts, and that's how I even found out that the show existed. Was
Oh,
because I was really
fantastic.
big on that side of things there for
Yeah.
a while. And every time I would talk to Kevin or do any of that stuff, the question was always like, "When's the show coming back? When are we going to do more?" And it's like, "Oh well, the end of the end. I recorded that stuff like a long time ago, and we're just
Yeah,
yeah."
the end of the end animated movie, we ended up, recording everything, and then it just took so long to do all the animation, and it wasn't just the animation, it's also the financing behind it. Like, there's all these banking issues, and, I actually end up waking up at night in cold sweats still about it. Like, it just took us so long from when we did the Indiegogo campaign to actually deliver it, that I still feel so terrible how long it took. But people were working hard on it like that entire time, trying to get all the money locked in, getting everybody all like all the animation done, and everybody just worked so hard on it. But it was so weird because we recorded all the dialogue, and then it was like almost 3 years later that we actually saw the lips moving in the animation to the dialogue, and it was this weird, almost out of time vortex where it's just like, this is so weird. They're finally speaking, and but they're speaking dialogue from 3 years ago. It was just so bizarre.
I'm sure it was a labor of love, though. I mean, like as far as the show goes, did you guys have to buy back the rights, or was this something that whoever ran the show was on board with?
Well, it's kind of interesting. The way things work in Canada, I think, is a bit different than they work in the States. So, my production company and my partner, like my business partner, well, one of the other well, basically the three production companies that made the show owned the rights to it, and we licensed it to Space. So we always held the rights to it. So
Oh,
we didn't have to
okay.
buy anything back. So we still own the show, which is awesome. So if I don't know, ever wanted to create an AI to make a Dead in the Book of Pure Evil episodes. I think that's still a weird legal gray area, but it's probably
Mm.
morally wrong too. I don't know, but give me 10 years and I'll make a Chat GPT plugin and you can talk to Todd.
Well, I'll be waiting for that one. So with the episodes, I rewatched the entire series plus the end of the end over the weekend to get ready for this
Ah,
interview.
man, fantastic.
Uh, it was still amazing. One thing I did notice, and I started noticing it more and more, was the Wilhelm scream is in
Ah,
almost every episode. Uh,
yeah, that was a big thing for one of our producers. He was determined to put the Willem scream in every episode. So I'm really very pleased that you picked that up.
Yeah, I caught most of them. I might have to go back and watch it again just to make sure that I check every episode box, off the list and whatnot. But that was cool. Is there any other like secrets hidden within the walls of Todd and the Book of Pure Evil?
Oh man, there probably is. It's honestly just been so long ago. I picked out every T-shirt that Todd wears in the entire series. Like I was spending so much time curating his wardrobe that at some point my producer pulled me aside and said, like, you gotta get back to writing scripts. You're spending too much time on the T-shirts. That being said, the costume department did so much work on that show and actually had to put up with me with all my t-shirt recommendations and requests and stuff. So they were a very patient bunch. Yeah, secrets and stuff. There's a few little nods here and there, but I think they're really obvious. Like in the end of the end movie, you can see the Crowley pizza. It's Aleister Crowley holding a pizza slice. So yeah, there's little bits here and there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't catch that one. But I know like the Book of Pure Evil, obviously probably a reference to the Necronomicon, right?
It was and it wasn't. I mean, it obviously was, right? Because like we're huge Evil Dead fans and just I mean, I saw Army of Darkness in the theater, I think 15 times. Like I just loved that. But a big fan of evil books and grimoires and not just even the Necronomicon from, going back beyond that to Lovecraft and everything like that. But I think once we started really getting into it, the book just kind of took on a life of its own. Like in the very, very first draft of the short film, it was the Grand Grimoire, and it was much more of a very specifically to summon the devil sort of book. Um, and we were really, really happy with the design of it, and with like coming up with the devil horns on it. But when the reboot of Evil Dead came out, and it was like the book was like stitched with the different parts and it looked exactly like the Book of Pure Evil, I was like they totally stole our design, and I was like, well, we kind of stole their design first, so it's kind of like eating its tail there. So yeah.
Yeah, nice little back and forth there. I mean, I'm sure people on that film probably have seen the show. Uh,
And it's not hard to come up with that design. You take pieces of skin and you stitch them together, you're going to come up with something pretty close. So
Well, yours though is Judas's foreskin, so I mean, it was very unique, not just
Yeah.
any old skin.
I think what trips me out more is watching Stranger Things. When Stranger Things came out, the science teacher looks so much like Atticus Murphy. He's got the mustache, he's got the sweater vest, and we were all like, "Did they see our show?" And then by the time the last season came out, that was like all metal. It was just like well, we're all drawing from the same well, but yeah, there was some similarities there, but they did it very well. Yeah,
Yeah. I've watched through Stranger Things. Of course, it's awesome, and
yeah.
the metal aspect of it was pretty cool. Me personally, I was never that much of a metalhead, but I know, like you said, that you picked out all the shirts. Did Alex have any influence on that, or was he a big metal guy or anything like that?
He wasn't at the time. I ended up making him a big playlist of stuff, and he did a lot of research. And especially for when he was doing his Battle of the Bands, he watched a lot of Iron Maiden and some Bruce Dickinson stuff to really get the moves down for all of that, which is great. Um, and in the first episode, in the pilot episode, his transformation into Evil Todd is really based on early photos of Glenn Danzig when he was with the Misfits. So yeah, there's a the I think I introduced him to metal, and over the years when I have seen him, he's mentioned different metal bands that I haven't heard of that he's into, and just glad to spread the metal, man.
Yeah, for sure. I was in a band for a while myself, but it was a electronic kind of disco style band, so
Oh, nice.
very different as
Very
far as that
different.
goes.
Yeah.
But similar, we had like the we took the influence from Kiss and did like
Oh,
costumes,
right.
and like our
Nice.
bassist had like the big boots and stuff like that. So it was a fun experience, but COVID
That's
ended up
awesome.
killing that whole thing,
Ah,
unfortunately. Um,
COVID ruins everything.
it really kind of did,
It really
unfortunately.
did.
But
I had so many projects fall apart because of COVID. It was just a very, very sad time. Not to mention people who like entire livelihoods were wiped out. It just sucked, man. It sucked. It just sucked all around. So
it was
yeah,
bad. It was probably the Book of Pure Evil that brought it about.
probably yeah, some sort of karmic payback.
So with the show being kind of unceremoniously canceled, unfortunately, I'm sure there was more seasons in the works because you guys left it on such a major cliffhanger that you had to go back and finish it with that movie. Uh,
Yeah.
so what kind of stuff was in the works as far as that goes?
Well, I don't think it's any surprise to anybody that our cast was considerably older than teenagers, and it was really starting to become, like, super apparent by the end of season 2, and so we were like, "If we're gonna do this, we really just gotta finish this really fast," and so we had this great grand idea to shoot season 3 and 4 back to back, and I wrote out this season Bible with my co-writer, Charles, and we fleshed out 2 full seasons of where everything was gonna go. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. So, the core of that, the core spine of that ended up becoming, Todd and the Todd animated movie. But there was a lot of surprises that were gonna happen there. We're gonna bring some characters back in unexpected ways. We had 2 huge musical episodes we were gonna do. There was a lot of crazy stuff.
And the musical episodes were awesome. the
Those Yeah, those are the brainchild of Charles Pico. Those that the madness of Charles Pico and Sean Pierce, our composer. It was a very Bernie Taupin, Elton John relationship there, where Charles would write the lyrics and Sean would just go to town and bring them to life. So we were so lucky to have that combination. Those are 2 of my favorite episodes, and actually probably the 2 I had the least to do with as well. So I just was like, "This is me, hands off. You guys do what you're doing. I'm not gonna fuck this up."
I mean, sometimes it's just better to sit back and watch stuff get created. Yeah,
Especially when people are dancing and singing, I just wanna sit back and watch all that happen.
Yeah, for sure. I was surprised that there was actual musical numbers in the end of the end, because that, like, when I first watched it, that was not something that I was expecting to happen. And then we got several awesome songs in that I was really impressed with.
Yeah, it was really important for us to have some musical numbers in there because the musical episodes were such a big part of the original show. We really wanted to call back to that and honor that, and also just, sadly put to the rest everything that we really loved about Todd. And we had some really grand ideas for some epic musical episodes for a continuing series, so we wanted to get some of those ideas in there. Plus,
Yeah.
Charles was like really desperate to write a country song for Todd, so we were like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah, country metal. I guess that's a
Yeah,
thing.
there's a bit of a country metal thing going on there.
Yeah. Um, as far as things that you wish you could have gotten in, I know with the animated feature, there's a lot more that you can do in an animated format that you can't do in live action. But was there anything that was planned that didn't make it into the animated film that you really wanted to happen?
Not necessarily the animated film, but in if we were going to be doing the longer series, like if we were going to be doing a season 3 and a season 4, one of the big storylines we had was Atticus's uncle would come back to Crowley High, and he'd be played by the same actor who played his father, Julian Riching, who's just this amazing Canadian actor who's just in tons of stuff, and just really loved working with him, and really wanted to just bring him back. And he would be playing a very different character than he played before, and it would bring back all these father issues with Atticus, and it would just divide everybody. And yeah, it was there was a huge storyline with him that I was really sad to have to let go. But one of the things that we always wanted to do is we started seeding in season 1 everything about Hannah being a clone, and it was really fun to be able to really focus on that in the animated feature to really get that story resolved to a certain extent, and just being able to do stuff like having the giant grotesque Hannah clones at the end was just so much fun, and just being able to do a lot of that stuff that you just would never have been able to do in a live action series.
Yeah, the Hannah story arc was something that I really didn't expect. Even rewatching it and trying to find like those hints and clues, I know there was the science aspect, and then like the parents just kind of disappeared or whatever. But other than that, it didn't seem like there was a lot of clues going into that until right at the very end of season 2, when you see the tubes or whatever where it
Yeah,
opens. Then Hannah D. Williams comes out.
yeah. It's funny with that. We thought we were being, well, I thought I was being so clever by having all the tubes and her eyes opening up at the end. And since then, I have seen God, at least 10 other films and TV series that have similar, like, going through the tubes and somebody's eyes open, and I'm like, "Oh, I guess it was an homage to all this stuff I didn't know was already out there," so,
I mean, if you didn't know that it existed, then it's totally unique.
yeah, I think we were tapping into some sort of eternal zeitgeist or something on that one.
It very well could be. I mean, there's a lot of stuff where you find similarities in different aspects of shows and movies, and then if you manage to talk to any of them, they're like, "Oh no, I've never seen that." Like I
Yeah.
know some of my friends that are big Buffy fans, and I've introduced them to Todd. They're like, "Oh yeah, so this is like Buffy," and I'm like, "I don't think they
Oh my
ever."
god, yeah. It's when I was developing the show, my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, I would always tell her like, "Oh, we got this idea for Todd." And she's like, "Yeah, Buffy did that." And I'm like, "Oh!" And so I had to stop talking to her about it because Buffy would have done it. And I watched the first season of Buffy because I just missed it for some reason. I was going to punk shows when Buffy was on, and well, I had to stop watching the show because I was just like, I'm never going to be able to write anything because Buffy's done every idea that I've had for the show already. So I just got to stop. And as long as I don't, it's that whole thing where it's like, if I don't know I'm ripping them off, then it's okay. But if I see that they've done a storyline that I've done, that I'm pitching, I'm just not going to be able to do it. So
Yeah, I
I
mean,
had to back away from that.
Yeah, I imagine with it being like a high school situation and like, monster of the week kind of thing, it's hard not to kind of
Oh,
compare the two, even though they're very different.
it's unavoidable, and I mean, we were as much of a spoof of Buffy as we were, as Buffy was kind of playing as, initially as kind of a spoof on B movies too. The first season of Buffy is really, really arch, much more than I thought it would be. And then again, I got to the end of the first season, I was like, "No, I can't watch anymore because it's too good, and I'll never write anything." So,
Did you ever
yeah.
go back and finish it?
No, no, I haven't because there's just too much, man. There's too many shows. There's too much streaming. There's just too much stuff.
There
So
really
hard to keep
is.
up on top of stuff. Yeah, and like I find out about shows that like went on for like 3 or 4 seasons I didn't even know existed. I'm like, I don't have 50 hours to watch this, you know? So, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I feel like if I don't catch it at the time, I'm just never gonna get it. Yeah.
Hey, fair enough. I feel the same way with a lot of shows now. It's like everything's always coming out, and it just feels like there's never enough time. So now you got to be even more picky. And it seems like that's really affected like the Nielsen numbers and stuff like that here in the States. So, they have to look at the streaming numbers and go like, okay, did this get a lot of secondary attention? Is this enough to warrant a third, fourth season of a show?
Yeah.
And then it becomes such a hard thing to do unless you catch that lightning in a bottle, which I feel like you guys did with Todd and the Book of Pure Evil, and it just, with FearNet and Space. I think that was
Yeah. It
the
was Space in
yeah.
Canada, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know that much about space, but I know FearNet, nobody had that back in the day. So
Yeah,
unless you were
unfortunately.
like just a really big horror fan, which I think a lot of people wound up catching it on Netflix whenever it finally started
Yeah.
streaming on there. And a lot of my friends, at least, whenever I brought it up to them when I first found it, was like, "Oh yeah, this is on Netflix. Like, you should check this out." They were like, "Oh, is this like a Netflix original?" Because like, there's a lot of dicks, like big puppet dicks and stuff like that going on
There
here.
was a lot of stuff. Yeah, it was in a lot of ways, I feel like we were maybe just a few years ahead of our time. You know, it's streaming was very, very new right when Todd came out. I don't think we actually even ended up on Netflix until a year or two after the show had already been canceled. And it was just this really just strange period of time. And I think, we were just before that whole really the streaming binge watching thing became a thing. So while we were actually on the air, you had to catch it at certain times. There wasn't a way to stream it off of a website at the time, or if there was, it was really hard, and you need to have a really fast internet connection, which most people didn't have at the time. So in a lot of ways, we were in the right place at the right time because we had the right executives and the right environment to make the show, but we didn't really have the right environment to have the audience. And so, yeah, it's bittersweet, man. But it was still, one of the best times of my life. Absolutely, the top creative part of my life. I had so much fun working on that show. Worked with all the best people and my best friends, and just it was such a great time.
What are you doing at this point as far as
I'm working a lot as a episodic director for different Canadian television shows. I'm writing different feature films that I'm hoping to get made, and writing television series I hope to get made. So yeah, here's hoping. So we'll see how it all goes.
Yeah, well, it's always kind of a crapshoot, the
Yeah,
world of Hollywood filmmaking, anything like that, Canada or America or anywhere else. It's a lot of being told no.
yes,
um,
absolutely. So you get told no a lot more than you ever get told yes. So the amount of shows that don't go far outnumber the ones that do.
mm. It's funny because like Amazon was doing this thing back in the day where they just made pilots of stuff before Amazon Prime like started
Oh,
becoming
I
a
remember
thing.
that. Yeah, they did a bunch of pilots and you would vote on them. Yeah, that was
Hmm.
a very strange nascent streaming thing that was going on.
It was weird, but at the same time, like it seems like that would have been a better route for things to go. Like they make pilots of stuff all the time, and you're like the us, regular folk never really get to see them. And it's one of those things where it's like maybe this would actually have an audience if you would actually give it the chance. Which I thought was kind of cool that they went that route. It was very short lived. I'm not sure, how the numbers on that went down, but it seems like that would have probably been the best way to maybe get a Todd in the Book of Pure Evil type show going at this point. Um, or just doing like a YouTube series or something like that, because that's become like a much more common thing. Uh,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, these shows, they're kind of cyclical. Everybody tries to put out a horror comedy television series every few years, and I mean, the most successful one right now is What We Do in the Shadows. That's been huge, and they're wrapping up their final season, and so there'll be another one somewhere along the line. So we'll
a
see.
few
Who knows?
years,
Maybe, yeah, maybe it'll be mine. Who knows? We will see.
maybe.
Yeah.
So do you think that Todd and Jenny actually wound up together, or is that very much just a high school? We're in the same situation, fighting an evil book, and once that's done, we're kind of
So many relationships are based on the circumstances. If I was ever going to do a sequel to Todd and the Book of Pure Evil, it would be picking them up, 20 years later and seeing where their lives were. And I definitely don't think Todd and Jenny would be together at that
I think we need a Todd and the reunion of Pure Evil. It's
point.
if if all these other shows can come back 20 years down the road and throw up like Fuller House and stuff like that,
Oh
I
yeah.
think it can be done.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if there's some interest in there. So you never know. The world is a very strange place.
Either that or just like an anthology series. I mean, there's a whole history to the book that we never get to learn about in the show. And I'm sure, in the show Bible, there's probably some sort of document in there that shows like, this is the history of the book, other than the fact that it was, made with the, foreskin of Judas and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, is there like a history to the book that you know of, or is it just kind of like here's the book and it's all a mystery?
I mean, we've with all of this stuff, you always have like a working knowledge of what you're doing, and then it changes when you need to make the story go in a certain direction. And one of the things that we, we really tried to do is we wanted to do this real history of the whole book in the animated film, where we saw like the origins of where it started, and just do this montage of the book in different places. And we just couldn't do it. We're just like, nah, it's giving too much information about all this, and so we just decided to keep it a bit more of a mystery. So that is how it shall remain for now.
Fair enough. What's the deal with German herpes?
I have to say that we had this phenomenal writer named Gary Campbell as part of our writing team, and we were very very lucky to have him. He was kind of a senior statesman for the senior statesman. No, that's a bad thing to say. He was definitely a more experienced industry person than we were, because this was really our first show, and he came on board to really, just give his mentorship. And he was really great at taking two different words and slamming them together, and he would do that all the time, to the point that we actually wrote that into the scripts as as an ongoing theme. So yeah, German herpes from the mouth of Gary Campbell, right there. That sounds
So was
bad
he?
too. That should not be said.
So was he also the one that was like, throw a random noun with a cuss word and just, like shit rooster, and we got a word.
Indeed, he was. Although I'm not sure if he actually wrote that little speech, or if that speech was written because of the way that he would always come up with swear words. But it was definitely inspired by him for sure. If he hadn't written it himself.
Yeah. Um, So there are some things in the show that are just left completely unexplained. One of those things is the incident.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, yeah, I think any sort of incident is probably best left unsaid. So, yeah, that one's that was something that was always asked on set while we were filming that episode, what the incident actually was. And I seem to remember telling the cast that, um um, Jenny had a walnut that she wanted Todd to crack open, so he used Sand Dragon to try to crack open the walnut, but he swung back too far, and the sword went into Hannah's head, and it broke off. That was not the real story, but that's what I told everybody to shut them up, and nobody was satisfied with that one at all, and understandably so.
fair enough. The immediate thing that hops into my mind with that story would be like, but didn't Todd disappear and go into the future?
Oh yeah, no, that's much smarter, much smarter. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, there was another one too. It was in the season 2 finale. It's like right at the opening when Wanda goes up to Dennis and thanks him for removing something off the internet.
Mm, yes.
Yeah. So,
Another best left unsaid in 2011. Let's just leave
hmm,
that back there over a decade
uh,
ago.
well,
World
it's
has
good that it
changed.
was.
Lots of stuff has happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good that it was removed from the internet then.
Yes, absolutely.
Is there anything else that the metal dudes can transform into that we never got to see?
I'm sure there would have been at some point, but yeah, I do think that having them transform into Todd's girlfriend and a wolf was probably the high point of the writing of the show. I was very proud of that stuff.
Yeah. The metal dudes were another one of those things that wasn't really explained. Big mystery behind like who they are, what the deal is kind of with them, and why can they transform into both a teenage girl and a wolf.
Yeah, and yeah, it's another mystery that perhaps if the show had gone on and had all these spin-offs, maybe we would have seen like if it was like the Todd multiverse universe, yeah, maybe we would have had the Metal Dude show where we would have explained all that. So alas, that was a missed opportunity, and all those executives out there are kicking themselves, I'm sure, for missing that one.
I most likely, yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
know that there's got to be like the CEO of Disney just waking up cold sweat in the middle of the night, just going like, Todd, Todd in the
I
Book of
missed
Pure
it.
Evil.
Well, we're still here. If Disney wants to come on board, I'm pretty sure it would be a very different show
It could be, it
than
could
it
be,
is.
a different form of anime. More like Gravity Falls, like SoCal animation at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah, perhaps, or like a nice show where people stand around and talk, or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, something like that.
yeah. Disney did do something. Not it's nothing like Todd in the Book of Pure Evil, but Gravity Falls. If you've ever
Yeah,
seen or heard of that. They had a lot of that body horror type stuff in that show for kids.
yeah,
uh
yeah. No, my kids were big fans and had watched a lot of it, so I picked it up here and there while it was streaming along in the background. Everybody on their separate iPads watching the same show, but slightly out of sync. So,
Naturally.
that's my life. Yep,
It's kind of everybody's life these days. I mean, you
I
got
think
your
so. Yeah,
I think everybody's just kind of glued to the screen. That would have made a fantastic episode.
yeah. No,
uh
it would. Yeah, that's for the reboot right there.
oh yeah. We're what 12 years from the season 2 finale roughly.
I
It's
think so. Yeah,
2012. So
it's been a while.
yeah, if we give it another 3 years, that'll be the 15-year mark. Perfect time for a
Yeah,
complete reboot.
maybe it's the 15-year anniversary. Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, so final question here. Where is the Book of Pure Evil now?
I have 3 copies of the Book of Pure Evil. I'm very reluctant to give them up. I have two of the actual just books themselves that we used as the props, and I also have the soft one that is basically made out of sponge that you can whack people over the head with. There were lots of different ones. There was like a mini one. I can't remember what the mini one was for. We had a mini one. We had a blanket. We sold a lot of stuff in a prop sale in Winnipeg right when the show was all canceled and stuff. But a lot of the props I still have. So I've got all the books. I've got the Book of Pure Evil guitar hanging up on my wall next to Sand Dragon. And the 1964 time capsule is in my son's room, and Hannah's laser gun from the future episode is in my other son's room. So yeah,
So you got to keep a lot of the props for yourself then.
they nobody could pry them from my hands. I was like, this one is mine. We're not selling any of this stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no. Back during the prop sale, I really wanted to try and get my hands on a copy of the Book of Pure Evil, but I don't think any of them ended up becoming available,
no, I
if I
don't think so.
recall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
They're really fragile, actually. And you can't really flip through it either. It kind of is a solid thing that when you open it up, there's these two little clips that you can put the pages in that were featured. That way, it would like always open up at the right spot.
mm. And then I
Oh,
think,
oh, just before we go, said something that we really missed from the episodes that we couldn't get to do. We had this episode where there was we broke this whole outline for this episode where a cat uses the Book of Pure Evil, and the cat opens up the book, and everything's in hieroglyphics rather than in like English, and the cat becomes this half cat, half person called Man Cat, and yeah, that was something I really regretted that we didn't get a chance to do.
that sounds like it would have been a pretty awesome episode
It
too.
was it
Uh,
was bonkers. It was so bonkers.
I just thought of another question. Was there ever any plans to actually bring the devil into the whole show at some point?
I never wanted to, and I don't know why. It's just like I was like, it's not really about the devil, and people would be like, you have an entire society of Satanists. I'm like, yeah, but it was just something we weren't going to do. Every now and then there was like talk about sending Todd to hell and doing all that sort of stuff, and it was just something I was never interested in doing. So having Atticus with goat horns was the closest thing to the devil that we were going to get on that one.
Fair enough. Well, I do appreciate you taking the time to stop by and talk Todd with me. I know that you are probably very busy working on the writing of those shows that you were talking about. Is there anything currently that you are working on publicly that you want to share?
A couple of years ago, I made a low budget feature called Motherly that you can stream on Shutter. That I'm really quite proud of. It's a very different type of story than Todd. But I'm really proud of it. And so, if you want to check that out, that's kind of the stuff I'm doing now. And everything else is a bit under wraps at the moment. So, who knows, man? The world is a strange place. Anything can happen.
Fair enough. Any sort of socials or anything like that you want to promote?
I am so completely off the internet. The fact that you even managed to reach out to me, I find astounding. So nope, I'm not. I'm very much a digital hermit. I'm hidden away. So I do not have any
It,
socials or people to socialize with me.
It was very much a shot in the dark. I was like, there's this random email. I think it goes to the right person. I'm just going to shoot an email out at like 2 o'clock in the morning and see if I get anything back.
Those are the best emails to send. So, thank you for reaching out. Thanks for taking the chance. And I
Yeah,
hope this interview has been entertaining. And I hope your subscribers enjoy it. And I hope they'll go back and check out the show.
hopefully they will. And for those of you who haven't bought these out of print DVDs, because you can't find them for cheap anymore. It is streaming currently on Amazon Prime, at least in the United States. You can get season one and season two on there if you are subscribed to Amazon Prime. Not a sponsor. The End of the End. I think you can get it on YouTube. That's where I bought it a long time ago. But if you want to check that out, feel free to do so. And he's got an email. You can go on Google and find it.
Yeah,
And you can email Craig the old
you can
fashioned
you
way.
can you can track me down, and occasionally somebody posts something on the Todd and the Book of Pure Evil Reddit, and I'll sneak in there and write a response. So that's another way to get any sort of questions that you have about the show out there. So
All right. Well, that is all the time we have for this week. Until next time, I am Professor Eclipse, signing out.